Welcome to Footy Kickin Good. We are back with all things North Melbourne. Joining me, series regular and Scott Pendlebury's favourite stalker, Michael Flynn.
Oh,
I've been holding on to that one for a while.
yeah, no, it's pretty factual.
You love Pendles.
I remember I went to training once, and there was a guy there, and he's like, me and Scott Pendlebury are like good mates. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like, there's a lot of like hanger-ons.
Hanger-ons.
Yeah.
Well, let's move straight into the ins and outs. Look, there's a lot of good players, I guess, coming through the draft. A few players out. Look, the big in for me, I reckon, Finn O'Sullivan, number 2 draft pick.
Yeah.
I rated him very highly. Cousin of Sam Walsh. I think me and you both had the opinion that that's exactly who North should have taken with their second pick. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they missed out on the flying Viking. What was his name?
Alex Taru. Yeah.
Who there was talk about them.
They were very hot on him.
But it's like, he wasn't a top pick.
Yeah.
I'm happy they took the best available.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, really.
Yeah. Because, you always got to take the best available. He looks, I think he's going to be a gem, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Don't know where he's going to necessarily play, whether he can fit into that midfield or whether he plays out on the wing, but I think he'll find the ball. We got a couple of older heads that they've brought in. So Caleb Daniel, Jack Darling, Luke Parker. We'll get into those
bit of
shortly.
Depth.
Yeah. Jacob Constanti from Sydney. Traded over.
Yeah, that one was sort of lost as well.
Yeah.
I believe a small forward, like a live wire small forward. I'd been at Sydney for a couple of years, never really got a look in.
So it'll be interesting to see if he can actually, have
they've
an
obviously
impact.
identified. I think they're pretty light on for small forwards.
Yeah.
Paul Curtis, obviously, probably the best, but he sort of plays as a taller than he is. He's more of like a marking forward.
Yeah.
So I think they're after that real high energy tackling, crumbing forward.
Yeah, I agree. And Matt Whitlock, brother Jack Whitlock, obviously got drafted over to Port. They traded up for Matt Whitlock, so I think he'll be looked at for a while.
Yeah.
I think they want to see how he goes, and obviously,
Big boy.
Obviously that big, what was a pick through the future first?
Future first.
Yeah,
so
future first for him.
They might be banking on the fact that they do a bit better, but I think they also get back Richmond's
second.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it'll probably just be in a bit of a debt in terms of the draft points.
Yeah,
but
exactly. But you can being able to trade future second two years ahead, that probably helps them out a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of outs, we got Hugh Greenwood, Charlie Lazaro, Biggie Nguyen, who I was surprised actually, because I thought they might give him a bit more of a run.
Didn't see enough.
Yeah, Jaden Stevenson obviously retired, as did Liam Shields. Curtis Taylor, delisted, was probably the surprise.
Curtis Taylor was the one I was most surprised with. I thought he had a bit going for him. I think he's playing for Collingwood's VFL side this year, so I've seen him training with the boys.
I think sometimes when you start getting to these big list decisions, you got to make some hard choices, and that probably was one of them. Taron Thomas is pretty self-explanatory, I think.
And Jaden just retiring a little bit early, just lost the love for the game.
Which is
fair enough.
Started off with an absolute hot streak, and I think North didn't do anything wrong by going after him either.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, he was a Rising Star winner.
Yeah.
He was available. Got to get it done.
I don't think there's that's just a gimme. You don't even think about that.
Yeah.
He had an opportunity to grab him. They did.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. I mean, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll move on to our first point. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper, and I want to know the inclusions of Parker, Darling, and Daniel. Are they going to be an improvement? Are they going to help improve this list? Are they going to be capable of pushing this team to more wins, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think they're going to win more games for sure. Darling is out of the 3 is probably the one that I'm like,
I agree.
I felt like he's been a bit cooked at West Coast for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
From all reports, I think he's a brilliant trainer and sets like really high training standards. So even that on its own is like a decent thing for a young group. So there's a few young key forwards on the list, so that doesn't hurt. Parker's a gun. I mean, he's a bit older, but he just brings that, I think having him on the field, it's almost like, just an extra leader that can direct players and traffic.
I think that's the big thing for me. He's just got that leadership, those leadership qualities.
Yeah.
But on top of that, he's just someone you can kind of play anywhere as well.
Yeah.
And being able to have him in the guts in the midfield.
And the thing is, he looked pretty good as a forward for Sydney towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And Caleb Daniel, I think, is a steal. I think we were both pretty surprised with the way that he was being left and out of the team and
side.
subbing
Correct.
at the Bulldogs. Like I'm a big Caleb Daniel fan.
But he's exactly what they need because they've been using Sheasel and McKercher in that kind of role. I feel like move him into the action a little bit
He's
more.
a lock for 30 every week, I reckon. Like
you think that many?
Oh, mate, when he gets played in the right position.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a guy that you'd be looking at to take the kick
Do
out.
you think he pushes out like a Zach Fisher or something like that?
No, I think you could do.
Play
I think
both?
you could play both.
Yeah.
I think. Look, North. I feel like it's not the hardest team to break into at this point.
Yeah.
So I think they'll find a way to make it work.
Make it work with them.
Yeah.
Both. Look, Darling's probably the one where I just kind of worry about whether he's going to take a forward spot from a younger guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see Zane Dursma on the sidelines, Jack Darling in the team kind of thing.
Look, I think the purpose of him is to take some relief from Larky.
Yeah.
And that on its own is a pretty decent
that's true.
thing.
At least if you could spread the two tall defenders.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
look, Darling's obviously lost a little bit of pace and things like that, but he's still got great hands.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay him respect, he'll take marks inside 50. Like you have to put your second best defender on him.
Yeah.
Put it that way. So I think that's you'll see Larky getting less double, triple teamed.
Yeah.
So I think that's the
I
bonus.
also do like a scenario where Darling and Larky are taking the two best defenders, and you could play Zohar down there and possibly take the third best. Yeah.
Nah, Zohar's due. I feel like Zohar is really due like a big season.
Yeah, I agree.
He's shown glimpses of being like a star.
If he was in like a top team,
He'd be a good player.
we'd be talking about him a lot differently.
He is a good player, and I've seen him kick. I think he kicked a bag of 6 against Richmond once, but something like that. But he, on his day, he's very hard to stop. Playing in a team that's barely winning and playing as a second, third tall is like a tough job.
Yeah, real tough.
So-
But Paul Curtis, I
really rate
love
him
Paul
too.
Curtis. Yeah,
Good player.
I think he doesn't get enough credit.
Apparently, for a guy of his size, apparently he benches like double his body weight.
I think you'll tell me. I think he's got the bench press record at North Melbourne.
From what I've heard from, I think I saw a video of the North players at training getting asked.
Yeah,
they were like, "This guy is unreal. Like he's so strong for his size."
Yeah.
So
and
it's
him
a
and
tough matchup.
Him and Larky both dead eyes as well.
Yeah,
so good in front of goal.
Yeah,
I mean they were incredibly accurate last year.
Yeah,
so hopefully they keep it going.
Yeah.
Very few players can keep it going. I know the Hawks boys, Bruce and Gunston, were very similar for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Harry Sheasel because I want to compare him to your favourite player, Nick Dacos.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hype around Nick Dacos, and rightfully so because he's an absolute superstar. But in my opinion, I think Harry Sheasel's like close to on par with Nick Dacos. I think what he's able to produce. I don't know if you feel the same, or do you think Nick Dacos is still a rung above him?
Look, I'm a huge Sheasel fan, and this is not. I'm trying not to be biased here, but I still think Nick is above him.
Yeah,
I think, and I understand this is a North ep, so I don't want to get too into the Nick stuff, but I think Nick is like, I think he's a bit more like explosive and like
outside of comparing him,
but Sheasel, I think in terms of foot skills, is absolutely on par.
Yeah.
Both sides of the body.
Yeah.
He's a little bit taller. I think he's a better mark, so because he's taller. I think in the same way as Nick, he can play. We saw last year they pushed him forward a little bit. He kicks goals. He can play half back. He can play inside mid. Like he can do anything. I think going forward, if I was to say, let's say in 3 years' time, I think him and Nick will probably be the two best players in the league.
I agree. I think he can definitely take it to that next level. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's, probably the best player by the end of
He's like
year.
a Simon Black type. Like he sort of glides when he's got the ball.
Yeah.
And he's very... I'll tell you what's a similarity between the two of them. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I've noticed multiple times Sheasel basketball pat the ball to himself, which is almost like a Pendlebury thing as well.
Yeah.
He just has like such brilliant touch.
Yeah.
Like that's something that can't be taught. You just have it or you don't.
I love the move now from defense into the midfield.
Yeah.
I do want to see him go forward more because he was a forward as junior as well.
Yeah.
I think his goal sense is real great. And I think if you're going to have all these forward options now with Darling, Zerha, Larkey, Curtis, put him up there and all of a sudden you're looking really dangerous.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. So the big question is, so the last couple of years, a bottom three side has gone on to play finals next year. So I think we've seen it with Sydney, Collingwood, GWS and Hawthorn last year.
Yeah.
And if you look at the bottom three sides, so Richmond, West Coast, North, I would say most people would say if there's going to be a team that's going to surprise us, it possibly is going to be North because they've done all the right moves. They've got some young stars that are only getting better year by year.
Yeah.
Do you think that they could have that kind of a season?
So I actually have them as a riser on my ladder predictions.
Yeah.
But I don't have them rising to the 8. I think that's probably too big a jump. I think so. They only won 3 games last year. I think this year, I reckon 8 or 9 would be really good.
Yeah.
Really good progression. And I could definitely see that because, like, we saw it last year. Like, yes, they won 3, but they threw away so many games they should have won. 50 points up against my mob, like, should win that.
Yeah.
Arguably should have because of an umpiring decision, but I think they've the part of like some of the games I watched last year where they let slip, they didn't have like the old heads to like, you know, get a stoppage, like stop momentum.
Slow it down.
That's
coaching.
why Parker is like such a crucial player for them. I just think those are the types of players where he can just calm everything down.
It's also like when you hit those real crunch minutes and you need to know what you're doing. Like he's the one who can kind of be like, you go there. Yeah. This is what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, like let's say I was at the 2023 prelim against Collingwood GWS where Collingwood killed like 10 minutes of the clock without a score. And it was just like stoppages, tap the ball down, let yourself get tackled, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's where like experience counts. Yeah. Whereas like when you have these guys in your team, Wardlaw and Sheasel and Powell and whoever else, they're just like, they get a little bit like frantic at the end of games. They take unnecessary like risks, you know, it's
very, very young side as well.
So are they the youngest or Richmond? No, sorry, Richmond would be.
Yeah. I think they're, I can't remember off the top of my head.
They're one of the youngest.
Yeah,
but,
they're definitely
I mean, they've added
youngest.
3 older players, so it's,
Yeah, so that should raise their age demographic definitely. Look, I can't see them playing finals, but at the same time, everybody probably said the same thing about Hawthorn last year.
Yeah, that's true.
So you never know what kind of a run they go on.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is I feel like they've got a very hard run to start with.
The draw is really, it's way too difficult for a team that finished with 3 wins. Like, let's be real.
There's a lot of teams that finished a lot higher that have, you know, a better draw, which is ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, that only makes it harder for them. But I don't know. I feel like they almost need 1 or 2. I think off the top of my head, I could be wrong here, but I think their first game's against the Doggies.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at a game against the Doggies without Treloar. We already know that now.
Probably no Jamara.
Potentially, that's the other one.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bailey Smith's been traded.
Yeah. Caleb Daniels on the other side.
If there was ever a game where they could roll the Bulldogs, it's that one.
It's that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm very interested to see them and the rise, especially Zane Duursma. I loved him last year when he got drafted, and it was unfortunate that he couldn't get enough games on the park. So
He's
really keen.
Very raw.
Yeah.
Extremely raw.
I'm very keen to see how he goes. Mark of the Year contender as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. So I'm really keen to see how he goes, as well as Finn O'Sullivan. I think he's going to put on some highlights.
Do you think Finn just goes straight in to round 1, or they
I think
give him a little bit of VFL?
Nah, he's good enough.
Yeah.
He should be in there.
Maybe sub.
No, don't.
Straight in.
You know what? I'm really against a player playing his first game as a sub. I think that's a joke, to be honest. I honestly think they should. I mean, I don't think you're in the same boat. Get rid of the sub. 5 on the bench.
5 on the bench.
5 on the bench. All right, let's move on to the individual accolades. Let's talk about the Brownlow.
I think. Well, we just spoke about Shees.
I think there's 2 obvious names.
LDU is the other one.
Yeah.
I really like LDU, and he's the right sort of bloke to get poll votes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sheasel's my man.
Yeah.
I think Sheasel is their best hope.
I think he's the one you think about. Like if you think about North Melbourne, the first player you think about is Sheasel.
Yeah, he's the face of it, man. You know what? So I noticed that they changed captains over, and I'm blank.
I think McDonald stepped down, so
Yeah.
it is Jai Simpkin is a solo captain,
Yeah.
and the vices are Larkey and Sheasel.
I actually think it's Sheasel should be captain
I-
now.
I think they're-
like because he says all the right things. He's he's just like the perfect human.
I've seen him in press conferences, and he's just professional.
And he clearly has a love for North, like as well as the fact you give him the captaincy, he's likely to stay there forever.
Yeah, it's sort of the Paddy Cripps thing because he's a WA boy, isn't he?
Sheasel?
No, Paddy Cripps.
Oh yes, yeah.
They gave him the captaincy. Like he can't leave Carlton. He's embedded now in there.
Yeah, no, it's
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that Sheasel's going to be captaining the club at some point. I also want to mention, like we talk about Sheasel potentially has the ability to be the best player, in the league. LDU equally could put his hand up and be one of the best midfielders. And then you look at
just a bit older.
Yeah, and you look at the year of Tristan Xerri. You could easily make the argument he was the best ruck last year.
Tristan Xerri for Brownlow.
not for Brownlow, but I guess going back to our, can they rise up the ladder?
Yeah.
I mean, you got some real good pieces, you know what I mean? And
it's hard to believe they only won 3 games when you think about some of the names they've got.
Exactly. But they've all got games into them now.
Yeah.
The Wardlaw injury was
that hurts.
quite upsetting, but I mean, maybe that opens the door for Finn O'Sullivan.
If the thing is, if there was a position that they could afford to have an injury, it's a midfielder.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was a back or forward.
Yeah. Like Griffin Logue being out last year early, I think that hurt him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's all looking good. I mean, as we move on and talk about the Coleman, I mean, I think Larky's.
He was my tip.
He was your tip to win the Coleman this year.
Episode. So congratulations, Nick.
So I mean, you're going Sheasel, LDU, Xerri, Larky.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got elite talent there.
Yeah. And if we jump into the All-Australian potentials,
all
Charlie
four.
Comben.
Oh, you
Charlie
think so?
Comben.
Yeah. Charlie Comben. Okay.
He was probably one of the big finds last year in the back line. I like seeing these guys that are former forwards play back and they play really aggressively.
Yeah.
Darcy Moore and, there's been a whole heap of them. Like Pavlich back in the day. There's, I think playing as a forward, it's almost somewhat of a relief to play as a defender because you control, you can play back shoulder. Yeah. You can take marks over the top. You can get cheap possessions. It's a nice, not the worst place.
I don't mind it. If I'm putting a sneaky All Oz in there as well, I'm going Paul Curtis. I know we've mentioned him before.
No,
I just think if because he's a dead eye, if he can kick 40 goals,
40 can get it done.
Yeah, yes, pocket roll he could possibly land.
Yeah,
I'm all for that.
Yeah. No, I like that.
But I look, speaking about it, I think they're on the up, and I really hope for the North fans, they're on the up because I think there's a lot that haven't come out.
Yeah.
And we need to start getting some back to the footy and, their fans deserve a bit of success as well.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on. We're going to play the Who You Rather game. Now, I've just gone more modern and one or two oldies.
This is just who I think's a better player or who I prefer.
Look, it's your criteria. I'm just asking who would you rather.
All
right, we're going to start off. Andrew Swallow or Ben Cunnington? Cunnington.
I love Ben Cunnington.
Okay.
He's just a man's man.
He's honestly, I remember when he first got drafted, and I think he was Geelong Falcons boy, and I was just this guy's going to be good.
He just looked like a proper suburban footballer.
Yeah.
You can't hate on him.
All right, Ben Cunnington or Drew Petrie?
Cunners.
Yeah. Cunners going to be hard to beat, I reckon.
Even though I really admired Drew for the Frank the Tank celebration, which I would do it if I didn't have to hold this. But yeah.
All right, Ben Cunnington or Jack Zeeble?
Cunners
still?
Yeah.
Ben Cunnington or Glenn Archer? That's a tough one.
I'll go Archer.
Archer?
Yeah. Shin boner of the century. Come on.
Glenn Archer or LDU?
Glenn Archer. Yeah. I'm a 90s kid.
Okay.
You can't go past Glenn Archer.
Glenn Archer or Harry Sheasel? I'd actually maybe lean Harry here.
I'll go Archer. Runs on the board. On the board.
Okay. Here we go. Glenn Archer or Wayne Carey?
The King. Come on. The King is, in my opinion, I think he's the best.
You actually, funnily enough, were giving me a big rant about Wayne Carey early today.
I think he's the best ever.
Yeah.
In all positions.
Yeah.
I just think it's between him and Gary Senior and Junior for me as the best players to ever play. But he
obviously done some stuff off the field that
yeah,
that has probably soured his career.
Peak was unbelievable.
I'm not sure he's going to beat any of the next guys, but Wayne Carey or Todd Goldstein.
Goldie should not be this far. Goldie should have been up against Swallow.
Yeah, look, you might be right, but he's got the all-time leading hitouts in the AFL.
Can't
Give him
go
some
past
credit.
that.
Give him some credit.
Can't go past that.
Is Goldie the best ruck North Melbourne ever had? Has to be.
Spider Burton. Yeah.
All right,
look, I can't. Hey, he's an Essendon player. I can't give him any props.
All right. Wayne Carey. Here's a good one. Wayne Carey or Brent Harvey?
I'll go Boomer.
Boomer?
I'll go Boomer.
Okay.
Games record holder.
Well, Boomer wins.
Cool.
Boomer's a legend, so good on him. Is he still the runner for North?
Couldn't tell you.
Wait to see next year. All right. Our last segment before we wrap it up. Players under the radar. Who's going to break out this year?
Good question. You know
what? We've already mentioned both my guys. I feel like it happens every episode. I've got to come up with some more.
Yeah. I've actually written down Finn O'Sullivan. I've forgotten I'd written that one down, but yeah, I think he's going to be a Jet.
Yeah, so I've got Paul Curtis to break out. I think he's going to kick more goals than he ever has.
Actually, I thought one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's just because we were talking about his old man.
Yeah.
Archer's boy.
Oh, yeah. Jackson Archer.
Mate, he played some cracking games
I feel
last
like
year.
every time I watch him, he gets better. I feel like.
Hey, it's in his blood. He's a shin boner of the century.
Going off the North topic, but we're talking about Jace Burgoyne earlier today.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be like the DNA. It's just like
it's
something
funny,
there.
It's funny because we know about like the really high end like father sons.
Yeah.
Like obviously like Nick Dacos and the Ashcrofts and these guys. Some slip under the radar. Cal Shadir last year. Yeah. Where we don't. It's like they got drafted, but we're not sure. I feel like Archer's one of the ones that'll come good.
Yeah. I agree.
Along with Jace Burgoyne.
Yeah.
They're just
I had Charlie Comben as well.
Yeah.
Played 19 games, averaged 6 marks a game as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was intercept
great.
possessions were up as well.
Yeah. Big boy. But I think that wraps up our North episode.
Brilliant.
Enjoyed it. Very, very high hopes for North in the coming year. Hopefully they improve and hopefully their fans get some much needed wins on the board.
They need it, honestly.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Go North.